everybody, and welcome to another story of hope. And I'm really excited today. I have Cassie Blitz on, and we're going to talk a little bit about anxiety and mental health, but also then move over and talk about how having this understanding has really transformed you as a business owner and an entrepreneur. And Cassie is a business coach for online coaches and consultants. And I'm really excited. So I'm going to pass it over to you to share your story.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm going to share my personal experience with anxiety. I've been in your world for probably 6 months. It has been the only thing that's ever really helped me at this level. So I'll share a little bit of my personal experience because I did struggle for a long time with postpartum OCD is what I call it. I don't have a label necessarily, and anxiety, panic, all those things. But then also as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for 8 years. Full-time for 5. I've applied a lot of the principles to my business. I've always been anxious, which I feel like you probably hear from most of the people come on here. But I just remember being a very anxious child, very anxious teenager. And then all of a sudden, when I was 17, I had my first panic attack completely out of the blue. So that was the first time I ever really had an experience like that. I was just very type A up until then. So I had my first panic attack at 17, and really that kind of came and went throughout my life. Panic attacks, general anxiety for probably like all through college. So 6-7 years. But it was never so bad that I felt like I needed to see a therapist or get on medication. I just always knew it would pass. And after a while, honestly, panic attacks became something that I just treated like no big deal. So what? And that's how I am now. It's like, whatever, if I have a panic attack, who cares? I'll just do it and I'll be fine. But then I had my first son. He's 5 now. But when I had him, I was pregnant with him, probably 6 months pregnant, and I had intrusive thoughts. Now, I didn't know what those were at the time. I didn't know OCD even existed, but I just remember driving down the street and having all these really harm-related thoughts. My OCD tends to be very harmful thoughts. Scared the crap out of me. Like I called my best friend, I'm bawling, I'm crying. I'm like, I really thought it was a problem that I was thinking those kinds of thoughts. And especially because they were out of the blue and I just so against what I really wanted, which we know that's how intrusive thoughts work. I did a lot of exposure therapy. So I did try to do that route before I found you. And I had a therapist and I tried that. That wasn't working. I never tried medication or anything, but I tried a lot of diets. So I definitely resonate with your experience with like, maybe it's something I'm eating. So I cut out caffeine. I stopped eating a bunch of stuff. I could not watch the news or movies. Instant trigger, instant panic. So there were months where my husband, like, you can't have the TV on if there's something even remotely triggering. And looking back, it didn't even have to be anything that crazy. I just couldn't. I realize now how much I was like avoiding, very much in avoidance. I think it's around the time I found you when I joined the membership, I was just like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like there's genuinely, and I don't believe there's anything wrong with anybody. All of this fixing and for what? It's like chasing my own tail. There's nothing to fix. That's why it's not working. There's nothing broken. You know what I mean? So you were the first person to really help me see my thinking actually is kind of random and like pretty unimportant, to be honest. And so that was the first insight, was realizing I don't need to take my thinking seriously. And honestly, as simple as it sounds, the best thing I learned from you was if I'm feeling bad, just don't take my thinking too seriously. But I also don't need to fix it. Whereas before, I was waking up like an hour early every morning, tapping, meditating, doing breath work, all your stuff, right? I was like doing manifestation techniques, journaling, hypnosis, trying to reprogram my subconscious, all this stuff, because I was like, I need to be perfect, because if I'm perfect, then everything will be okay. So I think that was the biggest insight, was my thinking isn't that important. It's very random. And also, if I feel bad, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to like do a bunch of self-coaching. Just this morning, I had a thought about my business and I thought, I want to shift my perspective. Sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write down my thoughts and then I'll pick a perspective that works for me, but never anymore from a place of, oh my God, I can't think that. It's literally just from a place of like, I think I could view this in a more empowering light. I wonder how I could shift this in my mind or pick a perspective that is empowering without having to change the situation. Or if I think those thoughts, that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, I think you have an understanding of thought now. When we can understand the nature of thought and understand that maybe our thought isn't helpful or true, we can pause, and then up can come some more healthy thoughts about our business or about, but yeah, it's not like I can't ever have a negative thought. My mentor, Dr. Pettit, was sharing one of his clients was a mechanic, and he was talking about he had an insight around his job where if he was working on a car and there was something he couldn't figure out, he knew, well, I'm going to set that car aside. I'm going to go work on another car because every time I'm working on another car, I have an insight about that. And it's like we can see that the same principles apply to all areas.
I just feel like in general, most people are conditioned that anything good has to be hard. And I've actually, especially in business, and I found the actual opposite every single time. Like the more harder and complicated you're making it, the less results you're going to get. But also that's not the path. Like it feels very, very hard and complicated, like your business, for example. Something needs to be considered about that because you're making it hard.
There are opportunities where even if it's like relationships or a launch or a health thing, like not taking it so seriously truly allows me to access the wisdom and common sense that will be so helpful for real life situations. And that's where we get our best ideas.